There is a moment in the silence of a museum basement when a scholar stops breathing. Not from fear, not from illness, but from the particular paralysis that comes when the mind encounters something it cannot immediately process. That moment came for a small team of researchers huddled beneath flickering fluorescent lights in a storage facility attached to one of the great collections of Mesopotamian antiquities. They were cataloging routine work, the kind of methodical, unglamorous labor that makes up 90% of archaeology. And then one of them turned over a fragment of baked clay, no larger than a human hand, and read what was written there, and stopped and read it again. What they were holding was not merely old. It was a window into a cosmology so radical, so geometrically precise in its strangeness. The tablet described in the wedge-pressed cuneiform script of ancient Sumer a passage, a threshold, a place where the surface of the known world gave way to something beneath it. Stay with us, because what follows is not a simple story of archaeology. To understand what this tablet contains, you must first understand who made it. Travel back thousands of years to a landscape that no longer exists. The Tigris and the Euphrates, two great arteries of water cutting through a terrain that was, in the 4th millennium before the Common Era, a vast alluvial plain. This was Mesopotamia. This was the cradle. The Sumerians spoke a language that belongs to no known language family. They arrived in southern Mesopotamia before 3500 BCE. They built cities, real cities, with walls and temples and bureaucracies and sewage systems. Uruk, their greatest achievement, had a population of 80,000. They built ziggurats, those great stepped mountains of mud brick rising from the flat plain like altars to a sky that seemed overwhelmingly, terrifyingly close. They invented writing. The world's first written stories were Sumerian. The world's first love poetry was Sumerian. The world's first written account of a great flood was Sumerian. The Sumerian theological universe was organized vertically. Above was the heavens, but beneath the earth lay something else entirely. The Sumerians called it the Kur. In Sumerian cosmology, the Kur was a physical place, a real location, a subterranean realm that existed in the geology of the world itself. The Kur had mountains, it had rivers, it had a city ruled by a queen named Ereshkigal, whose power was absolute and whose domain was sealed by a series of gates. The descent to the Kur was described in the tablets as if someone had been there, as if someone had walked it, noted the landmarks, measured the distances. The tablet in question, a rectangle of baked clay, approximately 14 centimeters in length and 9 centimeters wide, the color of pale sand in preserved sections, shading to a darker ochre along one edge, where it appears to have been exposed to greater heat, possibly during a fire. The surface is dense. Whoever inscribed this tablet used every available centimeter, pressing their stylus into the soft clay with consistency and care. The signs cluster and flow in a way that suggests literary composition, a narrative, a hymn, or a cosmological text. The damage is concentrated in the lower right corner, where perhaps 20% of the inscription is lost to fragmentation. The text opens with a phrase, "I will speak of what no eye has seen." Rather than a hymn to a deity, the text transitions into geographical language, directional language, the kind of precise, measured description you would find in a traveler's account. The Sumerian term used has been variously translated as the place where the water meets the stone face, the spring at the foot of the mountain. The language shifts into what scholars call the deep register, an archaic vocabulary appearing in only the oldest and most sacred texts. The author describes a descent, 7 steps, 7 gates, 7 removals. The structure mirrors the descent of Inanna. This tablet uses a vocabulary that is stubbornly concrete. It does not say the traveler passed through a divine gate. It says the air turned cold and the sound changed. The sound changed. It has occupied researchers for decades because it is the kind of detail that does not belong in mythology. Physical observation cares about acoustics. Experience cares about that. And the specificity of it describes with uncomfortable precision what a person actually encounters entering a cave system. The gap between a tablet describing a cave system and a tablet describing the actual entrance to a subterranean world is enormous, but the conversation exists. Archaeology has repeatedly demonstrated that ancient religious and mythological traditions encode real-world knowledge. The Sumerian flood narrative now has geological support. What we call mythology, they sometimes meant literally. A text could be simultaneously mythological, ritual, cosmological, and geographical. What makes this tablet unusual is a section near the center with no clear parallel in the known corpus, a phenomenological account of what the underworld looks like from inside. The standard descriptions of the Kur emphasize its darkness and silence, but this tablet speaks of something different: vast open spaces underground. The text speaks of stone that holds light, interpreted as luminescent mineral formations, possibly phosphorescent features found in certain cave environments. It speaks of water that moves underground, rivers and channels that flow in directions the sun never touches. Someone who had spent time in such a system would recognize the description immediately. Someone inventing mythology from pure imagination would be unlikely to produce it. We are not asking you to leap to a conclusion. We are asking you to hold two possibilities simultaneously, the most honest position available. The great collections of Sumerian tablets were assembled during the 19th and early 20th centuries, a period of intense and often chaotic archaeological activity. The city of Nippur was excavated beginning in the 1880s by University of Pennsylvania expeditions, producing tens of thousands of tablets that overwhelmed scholars' capacity to process them. Tablets were shipped, cataloged in haste, stored in basements, partially inventoried, and then left to wait in darkness for decades before anyone with the right expertise found them. This is how the ancient world so often speaks to us, not in great moments of cinematic revelation, but in the quieter experience of accidentally encountering something waiting patiently. The clay had been sitting in that drawer potentially since the 1920s or 30s. The ancient world is extraordinarily patient. It has no urgency. It simply persists. When the text was finally given serious attention, the first challenge was linguistic. Sumerian is a dead language. Significant areas of uncertainty remain. The deep register vocabulary required consultation with specialists in archaic Sumerian forms, who had spent decades with the oldest and least studied portions of the corpus. What emerged slowly was a text that nobody was entirely sure what to do with. It did not fit the established categories. It was too geographical to be a hymn, too literary to be administrative, too concrete in its physical descriptions to sit comfortably with the known mythological corpus. Some scholars proposed it was a ritual text, a script for ceremonial reenactment of the descent to the underworld, perhaps associated with the cult of Inanna. Ritual texts that encode imaginary journeys in precise geographical language exist in multiple ancient traditions. The Egyptian Book of the Dead is, among other things, a set of navigational instructions. Our tablet, in its directional passages, has the quality of a field report. The difference is subtle but real. Once you feel it, you cannot unfeel it. One researcher proposed what became known as the prospector theory, the idea that the source material was a genuine record of a cave exploration by mineral prospectors. The Sumerians conducted long-distance trade expeditions for raw materials, including into the mountain ranges to their east and north. It is not implausible that expeditions encountered significant cave systems. What was found there became the experiential foundation for the tradition of the Kur. The prospector theory explains the acoustic detail and the luminescent mineral description in the specific landscape features of the entrance passage better than any purely theological interpretation yet proposed. There is one more element of the tablet we have not yet fully addressed, a passage that functions as a warning, or possibly as an invitation. The most widely accepted translation, "The one who enters knowing returns changed. The one who enters unknowing does not return." Let the one who carries these words consider, the way in is the way of knowledge, and the way of knowledge is the way of Enki. Enki, the god of wisdom and water, associated with the Abzu, the great underground freshwater ocean the Sumerians believed lay beneath the earth. Enki was the god who most often descended to the underworld and returned, carrying knowledge in both directions. The invocation of Enki frames the descent as a matter of preparation and understanding. You must know what you are doing to survive it. Ignorance is fatal. The geographical clues in the tablet suggest a specific area, the Zagros ranges that border ancient Mesopotamia to the east, or the Taurus Mountains to the north. The reference to a spring emerging from rock at the mountain's foot narrows the field considerably. Springs of this kind are geographically specific features. One section of the tablet appears to reference a constellation, a Sumerian term for stars used for navigational purposes. A navigational reference is only useful if you intend to navigate. Someone wanted this place to be findable. Someone encoded the directions with enough precision that the tablet reads less like a religious text and more like a map. Critics make strong arguments. The seven-stage descent almost certainly echoes the seven-gate structure of the Inanna myth. The acoustical detail could be a literary device. The cold air could be the breath of the underworld, a standard motif across dozens of ancient cultures. These are not weak arguments. They deserve respect, and they are probably in part correct. The Sumerian scribal tradition did not operate in simple binaries. A text could be simultaneously mythological, ritual, cosmological, and geographical. The Sumerians were not the only ancient people to describe a structured physical underworld with a specific entrance point. The Egyptians described the Duat as a real place. The Greeks spoke of entrances to Hades at specific volcanic sites, at caves beside certain lakes, at the edges of rivers that emerged from underground. The Norse described hell as a world beneath accessible through a specific northern geography. Across cultures, the underworld has a door. The universality of this pattern is itself data. Something was generating this belief across dozens of unconnected traditions. Something experiential, something physical. Caves are the obvious answer. Humanity's relationship with caves is ancient beyond all reckoning. Our paintings are on their walls. Our bones lie on their floors. The cave is the original liminal space where the known world ends and the unknown begins, where the ordinary laws of light and direction dissolve. Every human culture that lived near significant cave systems developed a sacred relationship with them. The descent was universally associated with transformation, death, rebirth. The priests of Enki, specialists in underground water and subterranean knowledge, may have descended deliberately, repeatedly, as part of a religious practice. What lies, geologically and archaeologically, in the cave systems of the ancient Near East that we have not yet fully explored? The Zagros region contains a subterranean world of genuine scale and complexity, real, geological, documented, that ancient travelers might easily have encountered. The tablet may be encoding real geographical and environmental knowledge within a mythological framework, or it may be purely theological. Both possibilities are serious. The tablet is still there. It is in a collection, studied, debated, and not fully understood. It will still be there tomorrow and in a century, holding its particular silence the way only the very old can hold silence, with complete patience and no need for our conclusions. The question it raises will not be silent. It spreads into everything else we know, complicating the picture, demanding better maps. The people who invented writing and mathematics and law and poetry might also have looked at the world beneath their feet and seen something there, something real. Perhaps the description is waiting in the clay, in the deep register language, in the precise compound terms. Perhaps the entrance they described is still there. In some Zagros valley, beside some spring that pushes cold water from living rock, at the foot of some mountain that afternoon, light hits at an angle unchanged in 4,000 years. Perhaps no one has asked it the right question yet. Perhaps that is our work now. Not to confirm or to dismiss, not to sensationalize or explain away, but to stand at the threshold of what we do not know and have the patience to keep looking. The scholar in the basement stopped breathing, and then she breathed again, and she began to write. That is always how it starts.